So Newzroom Afrika will be the new kid on the news block, so to speak. Where will it fit in? And more importantly, where does it need to fit in? Sarah Findlay from Media Monitoring Africa joins us now. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. I guess the most important question is, how do we ensure that this channel is independent when we don't know who's funding it?
Thanks for having me. And I think that's the first question on everybody's mind, is there's been very little transparency about this whole process thus far, and so how can we trust the credibility of the final group who's selected? That being said, we welcome that there's a new group and a new team who can bring fresh perspectives and fresh views and fresh voices to our media landscape, but how can we trust it when we know so little about the process?
There's no doubt about it. We do need more news channels in South Africa, especially to tell different stories and all of that. But do we in any way have a right to know who's funding this organization? Does MultiChoice have a responsibility to actually tell us, given its past with Afro Worldview, also known as ANN7?
Well, we would argue that there are three reasons why that access is necessary. Firstly, they have a monopoly. 52% of households in South Africa have access to DSTV, which is a staggering figure when you think of news and media access. Secondly, it's a news channel, which makes it different from an entertainment or a sports channel. News is essential to a democracy, and with our elections coming up next year, we need to know ownership and more about this company than what we have. And thirdly, as you alluded to, this year has been very controversial for MultiChoice with its ANN7 situation, where back in January they didn't disclose why they refused to continue the ANN7 contract. And now, I think it was last week, NASPIS at the AGM said that they won't divulge the findings of the report into the ANN7 contract. So it makes sense that everyone's speculative and confused as to what's going on here. And so I think it's in MultiChoice's best interests to be transparent. And
in the company's best interest, the channel's best interest to be transparent, because nobody's going to give them any credibility if they don't divulge that information. The way they seem to be looking at the independence of their news is by hiring people to ensure independent editorial independence and oversight. You know, we have two people, I think, overlooking this, Joe Tlolo and Dinesh Balia, who are going to ensure independence in that newsroom. Yeah. That's great. People will say that's a good thing to have, to ensure independence of a newsroom. But again, we all know that they can be influenced when it comes to a board, when it comes to management, and how they cover news events. So does this appointment, or these appointments, ensuring independence make a difference or not?
I'd say it's certainly a starting point. These are well-known. Dinesh is a well-known academic. Ntate Joe has a history of journalistic integrity, and they're definitely a starting point. But as you say, we've seen manipulations throughout, even in the past year, around management interfering in editorial. Look at the SABC, for example. And so if there are no other measures in place, having an advisory council doesn't necessarily stop some interference in the newsrooms themselves.
Yeah. Let's talk about the overall media space in South Africa. I mean, how much more do we need to diversify to ensure that we cover the country properly, and so that we give South African citizens what they need, and that's differing views when it comes to news?
I think a lot more work can be done. I think that having a new news channel is an excellent start, but MultiChoice has a monopoly, and so we need these new channels and these new publications, and with how digital has completely changed the media environment, where we're seeing retrenchments left, right, and center, the media landscape and the media sector are suffering dramatically, and that affects coverage and the information that we receive.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. We do appreciate it. That was Sarah Findlay, Program Coordinator of Media Monitoring Africa.